Rose West, one of Britain's most notorious serial killers, is now living a reclusive and frail existence at HMP Newhall in West Yorkshire. Convicted in 1995 for her role in the murders of at least 10 women and girls alongside her husband Fred West during the 1970s and 80s, Rose West was handed a whole life order, sentencing her to death behind bars. Now 71 years old, West has attempted to distance herself from her crimes, changing her name via deed poll to Jennifer Jones. She resides in a specialised unit within the prison, equipped with amenities like ensuite cells and access to knitting classes. Despite these comforts, she remains largely isolated, with other inmates rejecting her attempts at friendship. According to The Sun, West lives in a disabled room now because she can barely walk, never really leaving her cell, and always being escorted by prison officers if she does, sometimes sitting in communal areas alone. West's health has been in slow decline for some time. She suffers with high blood pressure and was diagnosed with irreversible glaucoma in 2017, which can lead to eventual blindness. Reports indicate that she has expressed suicidal thoughts at the thought that she could lose her sight completely. In 2019, medical staff labelled her dangerously overweight at 18 stone, prompting a shift to a ketogenic diet to mitigate risks of heart disease and type 2 diabetes. Security concerns have also impacted her incarceration. In 2019, West was transferred from HMP Low Newton to HMP Newhall after fellow inmate Joanna Dennehy allegedly threatened her life. Former prisoner at HMP Durham, Linda Calvey, recently appeared on Martin Daubney's GB News show to reveal what it was like spending time behind bars with Rose West and how other murderers would look down on her.
Well, joining me now in the studio, someone who knew Rose West in prison. It's Linda Calvey, also known as the Black Widow, as apparently all of her lovers ended up dead or in jail. That's a separate story. Let's talk about your time.
Yes.
You spent time in the same prison as Rose West. You're keen to point out you were no friend of Rose West. It seems she's living a pathetic and isolated life towards the end of her life. She hasn't got long left. What's your recollections of her?
Well, I think she deserves to have a lonely and sad end. I never ever liked Rose. I was actually in Durham H Wing when she came in. In fact, prior to her was the governor showed this smart man around and we went, oh, who's that? And they said, oh, it's Rose West's solicitor. He wants to make sure where she's coming is going to be OK for her,
right,
which we'd never heard of before. She came on. We all sort of just looked at her. We knew what she'd done. The wing she came onto, it's everybody on H-wing at that time was either in for murder or there were the IRA girls, or people that had done huge sentences for paedophilia, so all vile people. But even they sort of looked on her and went, God, how many kids has she killed and two of her own? But she had people that she did talk to there. She worked there. I never ever spoke to her, simply because it wasn't my choice to speak to her. Because I was on the same wing didn't mean I had to speak to her. But she was in the workshop, I was on the pottery, and she was sewing. And she actually was a fantastic sewer. She used to make lots of cushions and things to sell in the workshop. So the only thing I can actually say that anything good about her was she was a very good seamstress. Other than that, I think she was awful. She was quite argumentative. When I first saw her, she reminded me of a sort of a Miss Marple's librarian, which obviously her true life was complete opposite of that, when we all know what she did and what she didn't do. But I think she was able to bake there. She was able to do a lot more things because of the nature of the other people on that wing.
And Linda, if it's true that she's approaching the final days of her life, what do you think the reaction will be in prison when she pops her clogs?
I think they'll celebrate. I was in prison when Fred hung himself and all the men went hysterical. They thought it was amazing and wonderful. And they were all shouting out their windows, Fred West, he went and hung himself, singing it to the YMCA song.
Right, the dark humour of prison.
Yes.
And very quickly, hold up your book. You've got a book out, and you've got a chapter about Rose West in that.
I brought along for you. It's Life Inside. This is my prison diaries. Yes. There is a chapter that I've done on Rose. Good. I've also done on Myra.
All right, we have to leave it there. We've simply run out of time. Thank you very much for coming and see us today.
Despite her isolation, West reportedly still receives letters from disturbed admirers, but has no visitors. She spends most of her time alone, watching nature documentaries. GB News' Andrew Pearce recently took a swipe at the notorious murderer after learning that she received comforts such as television.
We're going to talk about Rose West.
Oh, are we? Right. Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Front page of the Sun.
So,
extraordinary story. I think a lot of people thought this monstrous woman would be dead.
Yeah,
we probably hoped she was.
Yeah, I think probably a lot of people would. This is the woman who had 10 convictions for murder. She has been in prison now for 30 years. And the Sun have done this, it's an amazing story. She's actually living in a very cushy jail currently. Of
course she is.
But she's accepted she's never going to get out. No one in this jail will talk to her.
Good.
Yeah, she's virtually disabled. She spends all her days knitting and watching the telly.
Well, she's got a TV in her room, I suppose.
Oh, I'm sure she has. Oh, yeah. I'm sure she has.
Maybe she's watching us.
You know, hospitals you pay £8.
Yeah, I hope you are. We hate you.
In hospitals you pay £8 a day to watch telly. In prison you get it for free. But anyway, there you go. Little fact I read yesterday.
Monstrous woman.
So it would be interesting to know how much this woman has cost us over the past 30 years, sitting in prison, living, having the life of Riley. She's always said she was innocent, which, don't make me laugh. But, it's there, and there she is. And this is a great
murdered
story.
and sexually tortured two of her own kids. Remember that?
Yes.
Is this an argument for the death penalty, not just in terms of the seriousness of the crimes, but also what is the point of keeping somebody in jail at the taxpayers'
I think it's £42,000 a year.
That sounds about right. I thought it was about 50, so that sounds about right. I'm not in favour of the death penalty. I just think it's completely immoral. And that's not a soft lefty position. It's just, I think the price you pay for having a civilised society is not to kill people because they commit crimes. So it might be expensive, but I just think that's the least worst
Or is
option.
the price we pay for having a civilised society properly punishing heinous crime? Because it's rocketed since the death penalty.
But I think that being in prison for life is an absolutely miserable fate. I mean, she can't be having a nice time.
Well,
nobody will speak
with Myra Hindley.
Sorry?
She had an affair with Myra Hindley. I mean, quite why anybody would... I mean, infamous Moore's murderer has an affair with infamous
You say it's not a pleasant life, Andy, but what happens is people become institutionalised and they get treated very well and it becomes their life. If you're sitting in your prison cell all day knitting and watching the telly, that's probably what she'd be doing at home.
Fine, but I think
she's getting cared for by the state.
Fundamentally, she has no life, she has no optionality, her liberty's been withdrawn. Whatever people say about cushy prisons, it's not a happy existence,
I'm not sure she would have had much of a life with Fred West, actually.
We're going to have to leave it there.
As Rose West lives out her remaining days behind bars, her story remains a grim reminder of one of Britain's darkest criminal histories.